U.S.-China trade war reaches turning point. In a significant development in the ongoing U.S.-China trade war, signs of de-escalation have emerged for the first time since tensions began. A high-level Chinese delegation has secretly traveled to the United States to seek a resolution. However, the gap between the two sides remains wide, with substantial hurdles to achieving a meaningful agreement that could end the standoff and its punishing tariffs. Why is progress so elusive? President Trump has publicly stated that his ultimate goal is not tariffs themselves, but something far greater. Tariffs, he insists, are merely a tool. Until his broader objectives are met, Trump has vowed to maintain the current tariff levels. What exactly is at stake? We'll dive into the details after this report. According to an exclusive report by South Korea's reputable Jungang Ilbo newspaper, on April 24, 2025, at 7 a.m. Eastern Time, a senior Chinese finance ministry official, accompanied by approximately 10 aides, arrived at the U.S. Treasury Department's headquarters near the White House in Washington, D.C. While the official's identity was not disclosed, the newspaper published photos of the Chinese delegation, with faces blurred. The report noted that the group wore identification badges required for the G20 finance ministers and central bank governors meeting held in Washington at the time. These badges matched those worn by South Korea's deputy prime minister, who had met with Chinese finance minister Lan Fo-an the previous day, strongly suggesting that Lan Fo-an led the delegation. Jungang Ilbo further reported that a Chinese official aggressively attempted to block journalists from photographing the group. The official claimed that while they could not restrict press freedom in the U.S., they could demand that foreign media refrain from photographing Chinese personnel and delete any photos taken on smartphones. Jungang Ilbo journalists countered, demanding the official provide identification and justify the request. The official refused, stating, "I am not obligated to disclose my identity, despite wearing a badge clearly identifying them as Chinese." The badge listed their name, photo, and nationality, confirming the group as an official Chinese delegation. This is not the first instance of covert talks. Previously, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent indicated he was open to meeting Pan Gongsheng, governor of the People's Bank of China. It is highly likely that Bessent and Pan have already held discussions. If confirmed, this would mark the first high-level dialogue between the two nations since the trade war began. President Trump has repeatedly stated that the U.S. and China maintain daily communications, and these talks likely involve Pan Gongsheng. Despite these interactions, China has consistently denied any negotiations, possibly to maintain a strong image domestically and portray President Trump as naive or misguided. This strategy aims to create the illusion that Trump, not China, is conceding. When analyzing China's actions, it's often necessary to read between the lines. From President Xi Jinping's proactive call to Trump to the revelation of a ministerial delegation seeking peace, China's concessions are consistent and ongoing. What drives China's urgency? Two major pressures are at play. First, China's diplomatic strategy with neighboring countries is collapsing. Despite hosting a summit on regional cooperation and Xi Jinping's subsequent state visits, nations like South Korea, Japan, Vietnam, Thailand, and even Cambodia have cracked down on transshipment and origin fraud. Vietnam, in particular, has implemented stringent measures, including a robust traceability system that tracks even a single screw from China. Data on product origins is synchronized with U.S. customs, and Vietnam mandates that at least 50% of a product's value be domestically produced to qualify as made in Vietnam. Violators face hefty fines of at least 50% of the goods' value, plus additional taxes and penalties. Second, domestically, China faces mounting challenges. Beijing has held 3 rare conferences to address the crisis: a regional diplomacy summit, an ambassadors' meeting, and a trade friction conference for 2025. Chinese leadership acknowledges entering a phase of intense trade friction, essentially a trade war. emphasizing defensive thinking and extreme scenarios. In plain terms, China's economic noose is tightening, with pressures only beginning to mount. Additionally, China urgently invited 193 UN member states to informal meetings on the impacts of unilateralism and bullying in international relations. Only 80 countries attended, less than half. The meetings failed to endorse China's proposal for global zero-tariff policies, agreeing only to zero tariffs for products from the least developed countries. Data reveals that China's 2024 trade surplus with its top 20 trading partners reached $706.23 billion, nearly equaling its total trade surplus. The least developed nations, however, have balanced or negligible trade surpluses with China, meaning zero tariffs would increase their exports to China, creating a trade deficit for Beijing. Essentially, China is using profits from trade with the US, Europe, Japan, and South Korea to subsidize poorer allies in Asia, Africa, and Latin America, a costly and unsustainable bid for support. On the U.S. side, President Trump's goal transcends tariffs. In an interview aboard Air Force One, he declared his aim is to liberate China by fully opening its market. Trump claims he nearly succeeded in his first term with a signed agreement, but China reneged after his 2020 election loss. Now, through tariffs and supply chain shifts, Trump seeks to dismantle China's non-tariff barriers, a move that could devastate state-owned enterprises critical to China's political elite. For Trump, this is a trade and financial strategy. For China, it's an existential threat. Stay tuned to WorldView today for more in-depth analysis. Please like, subscribe, and share to support our mission to deliver unique perspectives to 100,000 subscribers. Trump's Vatican visit sparks controversy. President Trump's attendance at Pope Francis's funeral at the Vatican, attended by over 250,000 people and 150 world leaders, stirred debate. Vatican dress code required men to wear black suits, ties, and accessories, and women to wear black veils and gloves. Trump, however, wore a dark blue suit and tie, prompting criticism from mainstream media for disrespecting tradition. Supporters countered that the media exaggerated the issue, noting other leaders, like Prince William and President Zelensky, also deviated from the dress code. Zelensky, notably, wore a military-style jacket, reflecting his stance of avoiding formal attire until Ukraine's war ends. Photos also captured Trump dozing during the ceremony, understandable given his age and workload. More significantly, Trump's private meeting with Zelensky, excluding French President Emmanuel Macron, signaled a shift. Post-meeting, Trump criticized Russian President Vladimir Putin's recent attacks and hinted at sanctions, rejecting Putin's demand for Ukraine's withdrawal from contested regions. These moves suggest Trump is balancing pressure on Russia while navigating U.S.-China tensions. For the latest updates, subscribe to WorldView today and join our community in the comments below.